I'm Bo Johnston, the member of Scottish Youth Parliament for Glasgow Anniesland, and tomorrow I'll be speaking to decision makers about our campaign to end gender-based violence. We as young people believe that an intersectional and consistent approach should be taken to prevent gender-based violence. Young people have felt let down by the UK Supreme Court's ruling on what defines a woman, and also the recent delays to misogyny legislation in Scotland. So these are all things I'll be bringing to the table with decision makers tomorrow.
Hello, my name is Shona Cuthbert and I'm the member of the Scottish Youth Parliament for Edinburgh Southern. Tomorrow I'll be speaking to the Scottish Government on the topic of gender-based violence. A specific area of this issue is how recent online narratives pose threats to young men and boys and perpetrate misogyny. Gender-based violence education needs to evolve to solve this issue.
Every year, for the last 6 years, members of the Scottish Youth Parliament have been joined by members of the Children's Parliament to meet with the full Scottish Cabinet.
That means we have the opportunity to bring the views of Scotland's young people directly to the First Minister, Deputy First Minister and the Cabinet Secretaries.
As MSYPs elected by our peers, we have the unique democratic mandate of Scotland's young people.
Article 12 of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, the UNCRC, gives young people the right to have their voices heard on matters that affect them.
And the annual Children and Young People's Cabinet event shows Article 12 of the UNCRC in action, young people being heard by the most senior politicians in the country.
Today's event's a historic occasion where both the Children's Parliament and the Scottish Youth Parliament are meeting with the First Minister, Deputy First Minister and the entire Scottish Cabinet. The basis of the topics that the Scottish Youth Parliament will be talking about is what's embedded in our manifesto that gained 72,000 plus responses last year. So fundamentally that's what we're talking about, along with our mental health campaign and a bit about the UNCRC and rights of children and young people in Scotland.
We're looking forward to meeting the ministers because it's going to be a great experience, and I believe that we're the youngest people to come here and be in the cabinet meeting. The three main topics that we're going to be focusing is bullying, teachers and our environment at school.
Scotland's young people are a tremendous asset for our country, and it's great to have young people who are as engaged and as articulate and as passionate about the future as the young people that we've met today.
And how will we know as children and young people that our views have been taken seriously?
I think all of these issues are issues that are material to the government's agenda. So we've got to make sure that what we talked about today is reflected in the choices and the decisions that the government makes. So I think over time, I would hope you would see in what the government does a greater attention to some of the issues that have been raised today. At personal level, there was a discussion about gender-based violence, and gender-based violence, of course, is basically male violence against women and girls in our society. And as a male First Minister, I think I've got something particularly to do to demonstrate leadership on that question.
First and foremost, it is most important to get the people who are most directly affected by issues around the table to speak from experience in terms of making life easier and making life a better place for young people to grow up in Scotland, essentially.
Just discussing children's views with the Scottish Government is such a big thing, and to me it's really and it's such a push forward.
So there's a few things that I need to unpack from that little mini compilation that I played at the start there, and I will try my best to get through them one by one as quickly as possible. But just on the topics about the Scottish Youth Parliament, okay, this is from the Scottish Government's website, Tuesday the 9th of September 2025, and it says, welcoming the Scottish Youth Parliament's new manifesto, which goes from 2026 to 2031, right? This is a motion that was put forth. The motion in question goes on to say that the Parliament welcomes the publication of the Scottish Youth Parliament's manifesto, Dear Scotland's Future for Young People by Young People for the period of 2026 to 31, understanding that the manifesto reflects the voices of nearly 5,000 young people across all of Scotland's 32 local areas. It believes that it builds on what is considered to have been believes that it builds on what it considers have been previous successes for the SYP, Scottish Parliament, Youth Parliament, such as free bus travel for under 22s, incorporation of the UNCRC into Scots law, and votes at 16, noting that the manifesto sets out 5 key themes which are accessible, equitable, and inclusive in nature regarding education, of course, and a sustainable, renewable society, a just and fairer Scotland, one in which empowers young people to claim their rights, considers that these priorities are rooted in young people's lived experiences, including concerns about mental health, education reform, affordable housing, climate change, and tackling gender-based violence. Acknowledging, of course, the Article 12 of the UNCRC, which enshrines the right of young people to be listened to and taken seriously, and commits to giving full consideration to the views of the youth as expressed in the manifesto in shaping future legislation and policy, supported by a plethora of absolute ball bags, right? So there is that. There is that, of course. Scottish Government's website, for example, children's rights. They say that their vision is a Scotland where children's human rights are part of everyday life. We want policy, law, and decision making to respect children's rights and empower children to be human rights defenders. We want to recognise, respect, and promote children's rights, including the rights to fair treatment, to be heard, and to be healthy. Following that up with an explanation about the UNCRC briefly, the UNCRC sets out the fundamental rights all children should have. It's the most widely ratified human rights treaty worldwide, covering rights to health, education, play, fair treatment, protection from exploitation, and the right to be heard. Emphasis on this, of course. This is what this video is about. This shit right fucking here. We use the UNCRC as a framework for all decisions affecting children, supporting our getting it right for every child approach and our commitment to keeping the promise. Just to conclude, the UNCRC and the rights of the child received royal assent in January of 2024. Scotland is the first devolved government to directly incorporate this shit within the limits of devolved competency. Right? So there's also that. And as I have said in the past, the mere idea of children and young people, or quote unquote teenagers effectively, attending cabinet meetings with the SNP or whatever government in question it may be at the time in the future, but for the most part it's been the SNP. The idea of children and young people, right, referencing the United Nations Children's Rights Charter, Article 12, which implies that children have a right to be listened to and taken seriously when it comes to decision making. The mere idea for these children to be attending these meetings with the likes of Nicola Thin-Lips or Hamza Yusuf back in the day, or now Slippery Swinney, and presenting to the cabinet, the cabinet ministers of the day, all of their qualms and their issues and things that they expect to be done going forward when it comes to trying to make society a bit more progressive. You know, I can't help but feel that that is exploitation of children, because they completely politicise the Scottish education system, and then in turn they then sit there and nod along like a bunch of fake redacted. But regardless, children feel that their voices and their opinions matter, right? Despite the fact they're literally just regurgitating what they've learnt in school settings. But yet they trot along to these events annually, right? And our government appease them. Our government sit there and pretend that they give a fuck about what these kids have said. And in turn, consequently speaking, what ends up happening is the government starts to push for more policies, right? We're, of course, little Johnny wants more action to be done on climate change. We'll get right on that. Clear-cut example of that would have been during a few years ago now, when all of the climate strikes were taking place up and down the UK and elsewhere in Europe, right? Courtesy of Greta Thunberg, right? Right. What did the SNP do as a consequence of that? Children demanded action on climate change. Bear in mind, they've got a right to be listened to and taken seriously. What happened? Nicola Thin-Lips decided to declare a climate emergency within weeks. Funny that, making us one of the first countries in the world to do so. Why did she do so? Because the children asked her to. The children demanded it. But where are the children getting this information from in the first place? When they stand there with their placards and their banners, demanding action on climate change and climate justice, etc. Where are they getting this information from? The very fucking education that they are subjected to. So again, you propagandize the education system via your curriculum for excellence BS and or or both even, learning for sustainability education, global citizenship education, etc., etc. And lo and behold, you end up with a bunch of little children who are basically no different to your adult soy protester and or activist, right? They are politicizing children. It's political grooming. Just another example, though, cabinet takeover of 2021. Okay. And it says what we did. This is the Children's Parliament. Right? It says to get ready for this year's cabinet meeting, we discussed issues and calls to action from over 12,000 responses from children in Scotland. We picked 10 issues that we felt were most important and worked with other members of the Children's Parliament to come up with ideas to tackle these issues. Right. And lo and behold, bear in mind, this is in the back of Fentanyl Floyd. This is in the back of Fentanyl Floyd with the entirety of our mainstream media and our government and our education system. And when kids were actually allowed to go to school because, they had to avoid the deadly virus. Right. What happens? They wanted anti-racist education. And then, of course, they wanted to involve children in national decision-making. It's like, where are children coming up with these fucking things? When I was their age, none of these things crossed my mind. And pretty much anybody that's listening to this point could probably say the same. But yet, the children of the modern era are coming up with this fucking waffle. They are coming up with these so convenient talking points. Why? What is the root cause of this? Children have the right to non-discrimination and to education which develops respect for differences and challenges. Racism hurts children and adults. Racism is not just a problem experienced by a few people, but one that affects many parts of Scottish society. Okay? And they say, what needs to change? They want support for children who've experienced racism. They want anti-racist education to be shaped by experts. They want to learn about racism, the impact of racism and how to challenge it. And they want to have more BAME teachers and staff. And for these school staff members to be trained in delivering anti-racist education. How convenient. How convenient. But they've got a right to be listened to and taken seriously, of course. The journey, right, this is a different article, same website. The journey began long before it very briefly, just to show this is like nothing to do with the year in question from before. Journey to the annual cabinet meeting, and here's Slippery Swinney slithering into the frame. On the 19th of November, 8 members of the Children's Parliament, alongside young people from the Scottish Youth Parliament, met with Slippery Swinney in the Scottish Cabinet to share their concerns and ideas about what needs to change for children in Scotland and their specific calls to action, right? But this shit. Our Child Human Rights Defenders Project, right? They're coming up with this fucking nonsense. And as I've used the terminology before, metaphorically blowing smoke up their arse, right? Making them feel important, right? After they have punted this propaganda into their heads. A good way to sort of eviscerate their little narrative here would simply to say, imagine these children, hypothetically speaking, went to one of these cabinet meetings and said, I want you to stop doing all you're doing on climate change. We think it's a load of shite. The children of Scotland have spoken. What do you think would occur on the back of that? Bear in mind, they got a right to be listened to and taken seriously. No, you've been radicalized online. No, we won't be doing that. We'll just ignore you. The only reason that our governments sit there and allow this crap to be punted out year upon year upon year upon year is twofold. First and foremost, it justifies propagandizing our children. But secondly, they get to do things that they intended to do anyway, but now they just pretend that they're doing what they're going to do because the children have told them to do it and they've got a right to be listened to and taken seriously. Again, on the back of propagandizing and political grooming. However, right, so calm down this article here, and it says, just down here, with information from both the desk research and the survey, the child human rights defenders got together and worked on narrowing down the long list of issues to be focused set of priorities. This was a vital step, as it required the children's human rights defenders, team to consider not only the urgency of the issues in relation to children in Scotland and their rights, but also their potential for impact. This process also considered what was already being done by the Rainbow Unicorn Government to address these concerns. There we go, fucking children. Anyway, and what did they come up with? What did they come up with after gathering so much evidence? Yeah, what did they come up with? I wonder. Driving change. After months of research, surveys, class missions, and thoughtful discussion, the human rights defenders arrived at their calls to action, right? And lo and behold, climate crisis education. I wonder where they got that idea from. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bigot. Maybe I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Or maybe I'm calling a spade here. How are children able to comprehend or be concerned and or demand action, politically speaking, on topics that theoretically should be nowhere fucking near classrooms in the first place? Right? But hey ho, this is 2025 in Rainbow Unicorn Land. They want children are worried about climate change. I wonder why. When you've got a government and a mainstream media and an educational fucking package to boot, all combined under a progressive bow. Scottish government needs to find solutions to these worries and put children at the heart of their climate action. Oh my fucking god. All right, let's just see. I mean, it goes on a bit. There we go. A bunch of experts in their field. Children, of course. Oh, the culmination of the child human rights defender work was their participation in the annual cabinet meeting with the First Minister and the cabinet. It's just. And of course, working in tandem with the Rainbow Unicorn government, aka our so-called Scottish nationalists, right? The children in recent times have been demanding action on misogyny, etc., etc. I just want to remind people of what they really mean when they refer to gender-based violence here in Scotland. Okay, the idea at face value would have you believe that it's just person A versus person B, etc. Oh no, it's not that. It's not that. It's not even a case of talking about men battering their female partner just because of domestic issues or whatever. No, it gets very, very cringe in terms of the fucking waffle they come away with, right? Equally safe, Scotland's strategy for preventing and eradicating violence against women and girls. What do they mean by this, I wonder? Oh, let's see what their definition would entail. The phrase, right? The phrase violence against women and girls is used to describe violent and abusive behavior directed at women and girls because they are women and girls. Okay, you're already off to a fucking bad start in that regard because it takes no consideration into men who are abused by women, and it takes no consideration into women who abuse other women in a domestic setting, right? Okay, some toxic relationships, very much so, include lesbians, etc., right? But we can't talk about that. It derails the narrative. So let's just say briefly here, because I know I'm starting to ramble because I'm getting annoyed there, right? If a woman beats up a man on a regular basis, or a woman has displays coercive, manipulative behavior towards a man, right? Is she doing so because that person is a man? Or is she doing so because either it's just a toxic environment or she's a cunt? Right? How is it when the roles are reversed? If a man does this to a woman, it must be because she's a woman. But when a woman does it to a man, it's either not talked about or there's an explanation. Oh, it's just this, it's just that. What about women on women? So in a lesbian relationship, right? Let's just look inside a little hypothetical lesbian relationship. If a woman beats up or is like emotionally manipulative, etc., towards her lesbian lover, is that misogyny? Is she doing that because her partner's a woman? Or are we just making this a gendered issue because this is what feminist dickheads in this country do? I think I know which one is the answer to that. However, it then says it is behavior which is carried out predominantly by men. Predominantly implies, of course, indirectly, that it's not exclusively carried out by men. Right? Funny, man. It is an abuse of power and stems from systemic, deep-rooted women's inequalities. I mean, fuck off. I mean, come on. It stems from power, right? I mean, it's funny to laugh at these definitions and whatnot, but this is our government, by the way. But the point is, this is the sort of shit. This is the framework that is placed across all of our political establishment at this point, as well as our academia. Henceforth, children go, oh, we want more to be done to like eradicate gender-based violence. Then you ask little 7-year-old Jenny what she means by that. She goes, it's an action that's carried out predominantly by men because of an abuse of power. Really? Okay. All right. Okay. That makes total sense, yeah. And then, of course, you've got, this is on their website as well, Scottish Government website. As recognised within the definition outlined above, gender-based violence is rooted in gender inequality. It places its definition of gender-based violence within the gender reality of men and women's lives, what it means to be a man and a woman in our society, and the status and privileges which are afforded to us depending on whether or not we were born a man or a woman. Oh, fucking hell. Girls and young women are at a higher risk of violence than the rest of the population. Right? Girls experience more frequent and severe emotional, physical, and sexual partner violence than boys. 1 in 3. blah, 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 right? But I mean, what has that got to do with power and privilege? Anyway, just to conclude this little bit here, along with the protected characteristics of sex, women and girls can have various protected characteristics that increase their level of risk and experiencing violence and abuse. Other systems of power, such as racism, classism, religious discrimination, homophobia, transphobia, and ableism, work with gender inequality to cause the specific types of violence. Says fucking who? Oh, that's right. Blue bowl cat headed arseholes who apparently are Scottish fucking nationalists. That's who said so. Oh. The violence they may face often combines multiple forms of discrimination. For example, gender-based violence experienced by BAME, young women and girls, often combines racism and misogyny. This is the sort of waffle that used to be like compilation videos in 2016, 2015 time, SJW compilation, right? The unfortunate truth, this is now in our fucking parliament, and consequently, or subsequently speaking even, it's now in our education system, right? That's worrying. Absolutely worrying. And you know what I mean? Then we got the Scottish Youth Parliament here, right? We launched bold new youth-led manifesto. I used to find it cringe when the Scottish Parliament would refer to their policies and their fucking proposals as bold, given the fact that bold is synonymous with brave. So replace bold with brave, and all of a sudden they sound really more cringier than they ordinarily do. Again, we launched brave new youth-led manifesto. What makes it bold? What exactly makes this bold in any capacity, given the fact all you're doing is regurgitating exactly what is expected of you, given the fact you've been politicized, politically groomed, and you were literally just saying exactly what would be expected of you, courtesy of the shit you've been subjected to since you entered school in the first place, right? But oh no, we have to pretend that young people and children are the be-all and end-all, and we have to pretend that their voices matter, more so than anybody else, right? And it says here, since last year, we worked tirelessly to produce this manifesto, Dear Scotland's Future, which was launched at our 83rd national sitting in Paisley this weekend. This manifesto reflects the voices of almost 5,000 young people across the country, gathered through a nationwide consultation. It aims to influence decision makers in Scotland over the next 5 years. It aims to influence decision makers. Now, put this into perspective. This is what annoys me so much about this shit. Right, because it's no longer a case of me looking too much into things. It's so in your face at this point that it just frustrates me that most people either don't care to fucking look for themselves or they just can't see it. And if that's the case, I don't know. Right, in an hypothetical or an alternative reality where our government do and say as they please because they're autonomous and they're sovereign and they're pieces of shit or whatever it may be, right? Do you really think they would give the slightest care in the world for what children and young people have to say? Right? So when it comes away with BS like, oh, we aim to influence decision-making in Scotland, do you really think any alleged government in this alternative universe would care 1 iota? No. But it's funny that these children regurgitate the exact same BS that we've all become accustomed to by parliamentarians in Hollywood. They say the same shit that the children say. Oh, it's a climate crisis, misogyny's rife, racism's everywhere. Then along comes the fucking children to save the day going, we want more action to be done on climate change, misogyny and racism. I wonder where you heard that. I wonder where you heard that from. And again, if they were demanding action that went against what our parliament was doing at present, such as stop sustainable development education, stop global citizenship education, stop all your bullshit about climate change, do you really think they would be listened to and taken seriously? No, it's just politically inconvenient, as opposed to being politically inconvenient if they went against the grain. However, right, so then they're talking about the manifesto, and I will come on to that in just a second, but it says here that the structure around five key themes, accessible, equitable, and inclusive education. Oh, everybody loves about that inclusive education. I love my inclusion. Safe and supportive communities, a sustainable, renewable society, a fairer and just Scotland, and empowering young people to claim their rights. So progressive. So very, very, very progressive.
Parliament is your parliament, and that includes children and young people. It's essential to us that all views are represented in our work, and over the years, we've heard from committee witnesses as young as 7 years old. We've had SYP, the Scottish Youth Parliament, take over the debating chamber to discuss what matters to them. And I've recently concluded a series of regional visits across Scotland, meeting local communities, including many young people, to find out how best to make the Parliament relevant to their daily lives. Here is what some of the members of the Children's Parliament had to say about the type of place they would like the Scottish Parliament to be.
3, 2, 1, action!
I think it's important for people in the Parliament to listen to children, because children might have good ideas on what's happening in like schools and stuff like that.
It is important that people in Scottish Parliament know about children's rights. So we made MSP Bob. He is a happy, smiley person that listens to kids and respects children's rights.
You know, another thing that actually really frustrates me by the framing of this, because whether it's the Children's Youth Parliament, the Scottish Youth Parliament, or just any other bullshit such as the Children's Commission or whatever it's called in Scotland, if you go through any of their videos from like back in the day, even prior to the UNCRC's initial incorporation into Scots law, time and time again, you hear children parrot the same shit in terms of saying something along the lines of, the adults need to totally understand our rights, we need to do this, we need to do that. So not only are they sort of goaded into adopting a pro-UNCRC approach to life, they're simultaneously taught that until such a time, albeit now I'm speaking past tense, until such a time as the UNCRC was eventually incorporated into Scots law, until such a time as that occurred, children weren't being listened to, children weren't being taken seriously, children's rights don't matter, children this, children that. So they have to sort of present this educational shit to children in a manner that has them believe that not only they're on a fucking level playing field with adults, which is in and of itself, well, creepy, as well as malevolent, for a multitude of different factors. But they have to try and make them believe that the system and adults and the government, etc., don't have their best interests at heart. That's what gets them on sides. They drum that shit into their head, and then all of a sudden, the adults, they just totally need to understand what we know. You don't... This is what annoys me, because I'm hardly going to sit here and fucking pull apart what kids are saying, because they're children at the end of the day, right? But the point is, whoever has drummed up the shit to force feed children with, they knew exactly what they were doing, right? Children are children, let kids be kids. That's the status quo as far as I'm concerned. Leave children alone, but they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. Another example in this same video is it's very brief, but listen to this thing.
I think children find it a lot easier to focus if they have something to cuddle or fidget with, like Jamal.
I think that kids are as... What is the word? What did you say? I think kids are as, important? Yes, that's the word, thank you. I think kids are as important as adults are.
Nobody said that you weren't important or whatever, but when it comes to political decision making, come on now.
Just here for the laughs. We're here to actually make a change, and we're here to do what we want the most.
We're here to make a change. This is what I'm saying. This is a repetitive theme. Children want to make a change. Human rights defenders, children's change makers, all this crap. How is it that children in the modern era feel compelled to even describe themselves as fucking change makers and or feel compelled to want to strive for political and or societal change? They're children. Where do they get these ideas from? Must be from some corner within society. Clearly, the elephant in the room is the SNP/our United Nations gurus. Clearly, they want to make change. They're children. They're children. Okay,
changes to Scotland.
What is your last word?
Be kind. And Virgil, what are your last?
Oh God, right, whatever. Right, the last thing I wanted to cover on this is the manifesto in question. Dear Scotland's future, all right, and it's been written by young people for young people. It captures the issues that matter most to Scotland's young people and turns them into clear policies that decision makers can act on. Every word reflects the voices, experiences, and ambitions of young people themselves, making it not just a document, but a powerful tool for change. I'm not going to go through the entirety of it all, obviously, but I'll show you a few things that stuck out to me like a sore thumb, purely on the basis of what I've been talking about, political grooming and the right to be listened to and taken seriously. Okay, so there is that. So, without further ado, so they describe themselves as the democratically elected voice of Scotland's young people, existing to platform the voices of young people in spaces where decision makers are at a local, national, and international level, existing to make a change in young people's lives, to think differently about issues, and to create a meaningful impact to make Scotland the best place to grow up. We are a youth-led and represent young people aged 12 to 25. Okay, now. All right, don't care about this. I'm just going to show you some of the crap they've come up with, right? Through the 5 themes of this manifesto, young people across Scotland are telling you what issues matter most to them. Check out all 31 policies in this manifesto. Yeah, I will do. All right, I will do just that. Okay. Let me zoom out a wee bit. Right. Oops, wrong one. Equitable and inclusive education. Oh, everybody loves that inclusive education. Everybody loves it. And then they can't help but just tie in the UNCRC because this is where this shit stems from. Curriculum for Excellence combined with the UNCRC, combined with Learning for Sustainability, etc. All of this shit working in tandem to politicize children. Just look at Sustainable Development Goal 4.7. Yeah, you won't know, will you? Anyway, I'm not going through this. I'm just going to show you just a few things that popped up right before I conclude this. Diverse. Oh, fucking hell, boys. Right. They want, it's just coming down. As I say, there's a lot of pages, and quite often, like, the stuff that they're talking about, like, it's just like, even the stuff that's, like, not nefarious is still the sort of stuff you wouldn't expect children to come away with. Right. I think it goes a long way to sort of show the total dramatic change within the curriculum as of late. But this shit here, sustainable and renewable society, their ambition is for young people to be at the heart of tackling the climate emergency. Young people being at the heart of tackling the climate emergency, right? First and foremost, where are they getting the idea that there is a climate emergency? Secondly, I pose the question yet again, where are they getting the idea that they can make any fucking change whatsoever? Make it make sense, eh? The climate emergency is an issue of climate justice. It's essential that the government takes bold and urgent action to meet ambitious targets to reduce greenhouse gases. The young people told us they're scared, right? Young people call on decision makers to hold large corporations accountable. The government must take meaningful action to achieve its climate targets. Young people must be recognized as key stakeholders in any decision made about tackling the climate crisis. It's like, what the fuck? Right, circular economy there. Thanks, Lorna Slater. Fuck. And then young people, a just and fairer Scotland, okay? To protect young girls and young women, from gender-based violence, misogyny should be a hate crime in Scotland. They want misogyny to be a hate crime in Scotland. These are children. These are children, for the most part. Young people told us about their experiences of misogyny in their communities and wider society. While some young people feel progress is happening within Scotland to tackle gender inequality, many young people are still experiencing misogyny every day. More unique protections must be in place to keep young people safe. But boys and young men told us they're also impacted by gender inequality. Therefore, legislation and education must be aimed at informing and protecting all young people, regardless of their gender identity, and specific focus on those young people, right? Or why not just make sex-based protection in the hate crime bill that came out? Oh, that's right. Feminists want that removed because that would have allowed for misandry to be included. Can't have that. Can't have that, no. Can't have it. And then they say employers should increase efforts to close the gender pay gap. A debunked myth. Bullshit. But hey-ho. Here in Rainbow Unicorn Lands, we aim to please as we appease our politicized children. Standard practice, see? But it's fine. It's fine. I probably just wasted 34 minutes of my life talking about this because, as per usual, no cunt really cares. Anyway, adios.